I used my meal plan to feed over 120 less fortunate people, by Rumba. This happened my freshman year of college about 20 years ago. My university had just invested in a big new dining hall, and to help pay for their investment, required all new students to buy a 150 meal plan both semesters. This was a big financial burden being from a lower middle class family, but my parents pooled funds to help me out and make it happen. Shortly into my first semester I found out from friends that the meals you didn't use didn't roll over. Since I lived off campus I knew I wouldn't be able to use them all. Heading into November I realized I would end up with 60 to 75 meals left over, and I complained about this a lot to family and friends because it seemed like such a waste. In comes the plan. My freshman year of college was also my cousin's senior year and we hung out pretty often. He was the biggest trickster/prankster type you ever met. One night while we were drinking he says, "What if you brought a bunch of homeless people to use up your meals? How much would that piss off those self-righteous bastards?" We laughed all night, but the more I thought about the idea, the more I really started to like it. We talked all weekend about it and hatched a plan. On Monday morning we went down to the local Salvation Army around the corner. I have grown to really despise this organization, but in the early 2000s in small town USA it's what we had. We told the lady at the desk I would like to feed people in need with my meal plan. She was hesitant at first but said she was working with people that this would be a huge blessing to, especially during the holiday season. She helped me organize 2 days the following week where around 30 people would meet me to eat at the dining hall. I would wear a certain hat so they could find me, and we would go eat. The day finally arrived and all kinds of people were there. There were homeless people in tattered clothes. There were families with kids that seemed excited to eat out. There was even one family I will always remember that seemed embarrassed to take a handout, but I made an effort to talk to everybody and make them feel welcomed. At noon we headed into the dining hall. I walked up to the lady at the entrance and said, "These people are with me. They are my friends. I would like to swipe them in." She looked confused but reluctantly said okay. To say we got every reaction humanly possible would be an understatement. There were staff that were obviously annoyed with the influx of diners. There were students that were laughing. There were students that were giving me the silent clap. There were snobbish faculty members that seemed to be disgusted at the type of people coming into the dining hall. I didn't care at all. Eventually, a head staff member came up and said they knew what I was doing and they didn't like it. I said, "These are my friends eating with me. I paid for these meals. Am I doing anything wrong?" She was stumped. The next day the same situation happened with the same reactions. It seemed that I had caused quite a stir on campus, and it just so happened that the university president was eating there that day. She came up to me and said even though she would ask that I not tell me friends to do the same thing with their meals as the staff couldn't handle the influx of diners, she was proud that her students had the heart to do something for others like that. The following semester I did the exact same thing. I even used my meals sparingly so I could bring more people. The one memory that will always stick out in my head is the family with the little kids so excited to go to the pizza bar and soft serve ice cream machine giggling the whole time. To this day it's still one of the proudest moments of my life. Me and my friends and family still have a drink and chuckle over the story and the snooty, angry reactions I got. The time I was a victim of malicious compliance, and it still makes me laugh, by user Stempel Garamond. About 30 years ago I was an admin and facilities manager of a Royal Mail sorting office, and one day every one of the liquid soap dispensers in the toilet was empty so I found a passing cleaner and told him. "Not my job, that's the night cleaner's job to fill them up." "Yeah well he obviously didn't do it, so you need to go to the cleaning cupboard, get some soap and make sure there's some in each one of the dispensers so people can wash their hands." I go back upstairs to my ivory tower, and 5 minutes later I get a phone call to say I need to sort out the liquid soap dispensers in the toilet. Go back downstairs, and in each liquid soap dispenser there's a bar of solid soap. I'm just a bartender and you know everything? Okay, have a nice shower, by user Nighthawk 580. Happened about 10 years ago now. I had been working in catering and hospitality, managing pubs, for about 10 years at that stage. The catering company I worked for had come up short-staffed for a smallish function/festival they were putting on. Probably max 200 people at a venue they controlled. I was in a different division but was asked to help out on the bar and the bump in/out. Easy enough and the music was looking pretty good so I agreed. It was in the middle of spring. The weather had not yet been really warm so we were expecting decent numbers but nothing special. Bringing in the bar was easy enough. The venue was massive and easily able to accommodate the truck etc. Having a single mobile bar with just one tap tree was probably on the light side, but I figured the venue manager knew what he was doing. So I introduced myself to him and got to work. I unloaded and brought all the gear and beverage in and made a couple of attempts to discuss how we'd set up the service area. Each time was shut down with progressively more aggressive language until he finally told me, "I've run dozens of functions in this venue, I think I know how to set it up. We really only asked for a bartender." Okay, no problem, I thought. I didn't mention to him that it had been me that had picked up the truck from the warehouse, collected the bar and 10 kegs from our supplier, as well as the other beverage package, and delivered it to him. Or that I was the only one able to bump it all out at the end of the evening. So I just agreed with whatever he said and set up as he wanted. So the weather ended up being a beautiful day. About 27°C, 80°F, with a light breeze, and the turnout was more like 400, much better than expected. Pretty quickly it turned out that we were struggling to keep up with bar service, so I suggested that rather than a traditional service we should have one person on the till, one person constantly pouring beers, i.e. never shut off the tap, and one person filling other drinks, wine/soft drinks, etc. Again I was snapped at by the now clearly stressed venue supervisor. "You just keep serving and let me do the thinking." Okay, so now I'd had enough. Customers were getting frustrated at the slow service, and this peanut was too proud to accept advice from someone far more experienced. And then the keg blew. I was about to change it when the peanut stepped in and said he would take care of it. I checked that he knew what he was doing and was assured he'd done it 100 times and to back off and leave him to it. So I did. I watched him not uncouple the gas line and go straight for the beer lock. Happily he had his face right in the spot, so as soon as he cracked the lock he copped a huge spray in the face of nice warm beer foam. All through his hair and all over his glasses. Wet all down the front of his shirt as well. It was glorious, and the first 30 people in line thought so as well because they'd witnessed some of his antics. I didn't hear much out of him for the rest of the day. He asked me to change the kegs when needed and pretty much stayed away from the service area. We streamlined things as well, and although it didn't end up a success as far as customer satisfaction, it was not the disaster that was brewing. Question my disability? BF will make you recoil, by user Sexisonic124. So I've listened to these stories and didn't think I'd ever have one of my own to share. So I got a new home for disabled accommodation, great area, and all around a good vibe. I love my new house. So I'm getting my internet set up and I arrive at my new house to wait for the internet guy. I bump into 2 neighbors as I walk in the first security door for our building. One was walking down the stairs and one just walked out her door, and I greeted them both. We have some small talk and one of my neighbors literally says, "I know a woman that should have got this house and didn't. Are you disabled?" I felt really uncomfortable. I have various health issues, but I didn't want to go into detail, so I said what my housing officer told them to. I fit all the requirements for it, yet she kept asking. I never answered that directly as I felt it was very rude and I felt so uncomfortable. Anyway, the other neighbor says something about her daughter having painful hypermobility. My BF then bends my fingers right back, and says how my knee went last week and I was in agony. Fully true. The finger thing, I let him do this as it doesn't hurt and he finds it cool, lol. This means I also have hypermobility, BTW. The malicious compliance, the women without the daughter with hypermobility literally poked at my fingers and stated, "OMG, you do deserve this house then." As she was trying not to throw up. I just let him keep bending them as we spoke, watching her recoil, lol. This was funny, but I was in pain from standing and annoyed at another person questioning my illness cause I'm a pretty young woman, just 30, not my wording. I'm told this came from one of my neighbors. I think I know who now. Cheaper to pay with cash? Fine. Have it your way, by user Oro writes Nothatime. I usually pay with things using my credit card. I find that it's way more convenient than carrying cash. This one restaurant that I go to has recently started a policy that I don't like. I'm constantly reminded of this policy by one snooty cashier. Every time she rings you up, she says the total, and then she makes a big production of seeing the credit card, hits another button, and then says a higher total. She then smiles and says, "Just a reminder. It's cheaper to pay with cash." Today, I put this policy to the test. When she did her little head bob of recognition at my credit card, I put it away and said, "Actually, I'm paying cash today." I pulled nearly 60 quarters out of my pocket and set them on the counter. She looked like someone had just thrown up all over her. That fake cheeriness she typically has when touting the policy evaporated. I turned to the folks behind me, smiled sweetly, and said, "Sorry, it's cheaper to pay with cash." As the seconds turned into minutes, I just kept repeating, "Sorry folks, they get charged a fee to use credit cards. It's cheaper with cash. It's not about the money for me. It's about the principle of it. Cards are easier, cleaner, and more convenient, as the cashier found out in a very visceral way as she counted the quarters. Honestly, the whole thing reminded me of those old commercials that compelled me to get the credit card in the first place. Price of a meal with cash, $14.30. Price of a meal with card, $14.87. The look on that snooty bitch's face, priceless.